So, life on the red line, an anti-poverty charter. Why develop an anti-poverty charter? So the first thing I wanted to do is to nail a myth that researchers sometimes continue to perpetuate, that there is something called neutral research. That's nonsense. Anybody that suggests that is trying to fool us, because none of us are neutral, certainly in the face of more than a decade of austerity, in the face of increasing levels of poverty and inequality. It would be criminal, in my mind, to be neutral as researchers, as practitioners, as churches, as policymakers, as we are more than a decade into this age of austerity. So within the Life on the Red Line team, we want to suggest that there is no place for debates about how many angels we can fit on the head of a pin. Theology, and I speak as a theologian, theology needs to step up to the plate. Theology needs to honestly and openly say, we are here to make a difference. Our research is not neutral because we reflect what we believe is God's preferential option for the poor in the face of structural injustice. In the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Bonhoeffer reminds the church that we're called not simply to bind up the wounds of the broken beneath the wheels of injustice, but to ram a spoke into the wheel of injustice itself. So why an anti-poverty charter? Well, because we want our research to be a force for progressive social change. The charter has emerged out of successive conversations and discussions at the National Poverty Consultation that our project partner, Church Action on Poverty, and the Life on the Breadline team collaborated in developing. The National Poverty Consultation in 2021 spoke specifically about the development of an anti-poverty charter. So, consultation over 3 years arising from our research, consultation at the National Poverty Consultation earlier this year, and then conversations with representatives from all of our 6 project case studies over the last few months. So the charter, we hope, is something that has emerged from conversation and consultation to meet the needs that I identified a moment or two ago. So that's something of the how. Let's think about the what. We're conscious of the fact that it is absolutely vital, if this anti-poverty charter is going to have an impact, that we all make it our own in the places and the communities where we live. So the anti-poverty charter is very, very deliberately adaptable and needs to be contextualized and rooted in the challenges we face in our neighborhoods. So that's something of the how and the why and the what. Let me say something now about those values that I've referred to that you will see on the anti-poverty charter. And these are values that we have talked over with our project partners and case study partners over the last few months and longer than that, since 2018. Here are those values. I'm not going to read them all out because you can see them on the screen, but the anti-poverty charter is rooted in the conviction that all people are equally precious. We are all created in the image of God, so we are all equally precious. We're therefore called to reject stereotypes and binaries that objectify people. We are called, in an unjust society, to take on what's often referred to as the preferential option for the poor. That's a phrase that emerges from Latin American liberation theology. In an unjust society, a loving God necessarily, liberation theologians argue, has a preferential option for the poor. We need to focus on dignity and assets that are already present in local communities. The church, we believe, is called to consciously prioritize people experiencing poverty. Social action needs to be characterized by solidarity, because in what Christians refer to as the incarnation, God has become one of us. The Word has become flesh. Jesus has become our brother, sharing our life and walking our walk. Consequently, long-term anti-poverty action is a central tenet of the Anti-Poverty Charter, as well as meeting immediate need. We need to speak truth to power if we're going to love our neighbours effectively. And we also, and I think this is something that often within churches we perhaps step back from. It's quite common, isn't it, in many churches for poverty to be relegated, work on poverty or work on racial justice or work on structural injustice, to be sidelined to a church's social responsibility committee or its mission committee or its social justice committee. What we want to say within Life on the Breadline is that the Charter invites us to encourage and in some cases challenge our church leaders to ensure that considering poverty and inequality, thinking about how as local churches we can challenge poverty and inequality, need to be placed at the center of church life and not just in its social action. So what might challenging poverty mean as we have conversations about the use of our church buildings? What might challenging poverty mean as we have conversations about how we use our financial resources as churches? What might challenging poverty mean as we think about the worshiping life of our churches? Challenging poverty must be a central feature of all areas of church life, not just its social action. So that's something of the values that underpin the Anti-Poverty Charter. The Anti-Poverty Charter is not just a resource, it's something that is intended to invite us to act. And so what we have done on the 2-page Anti-Poverty Charter is to provide some suggested anti-poverty actions. And I stress that these are suggestions to get you thinking locally where you are. Invite one of the Breadline team to speak at your church or your group. Think about the ways in which we can challenge the myths that we read or hear about poverty or about the communities where we live. We want to invite you to use the austerity timeline that we've developed on our project website to find out more about government policy. Use the Charter in Bible studies or in a worship series at your local church. But moving further, are there employers in your neighbourhood that do not pay the real living wage? They pay the minimum wage, but can we get by on the minimum wage? Not very easily. Encourage people locally, employers locally, to pay the real living wage. Work with others. Citizens UK has worked very strongly and for a number of years on campaigns for a living wage, as has our project partner, Church Action on Poverty. As I've said a moment or two ago, ensure that tackling poverty features in all church meetings, not just those social action meetings. So next steps. The Life on the Breadline Charter is now live on the project website. Check it out and sign up to the Charter. If you want to sign up as an individual, a local church, a congregation, a community group, you will then be acknowledged on the project website as an Anti-Poverty Charter congregation. Be part of that network. Be part of the change that we want to create. Download a copy of the Charter and commit yourself to take specific actions and use the Charter to shape the social action of your local church. Encourage other churches in your neighbourhood to sign up to the Charter and send a copy of the Charter to your regional or national church leaders and encourage them to use the resource to help the social action of your denomination. And why not get back in touch with us, perhaps 6 months down the line, to let us know what actions you've taken as you've started to reflect on and use the Anti-Poverty Charter.